When we're speaking about cross-cultural communication, we should be very careful with the process of communication itself. And I would like to remind those of you who are already familiar with that process, with the element of this process, and to share with those of you who do not know about these elements. There are three main elements: perception, interpretation, and behavior. So perception, it is about how and what we absorb when communicating, how and what we absorb from the message that is conveyed to us. Interpretation is based on our perception of the message. And behavior, we behave motivated by interpretation based on the perception. And the interesting thing that all three elements, they are determined by culture. Yes, there are some other things that also influence all these three elements, like environment, professional experience, some family traditions, norm, etc. But culture influences a lot all these three elements. I will give you one real example of negotiation. These negotiations happened between Americans and Japanese businessmen. They had a pre-negotiation session, which took place online and by emails. Then they agreed to meet in Japan to sign a contract. It was expected that they will have two sessions. First session will be devoted just to in-person meeting, to discussions of the subject, and the second session will be just signing of the contract. So Americans arrived, they had the first session, and during the whole session, most of the part Americans spoke, and Japanese very often were saying, okay, okay, okay. And the next day, when Americans arrived to sign the contract, they have been surprised by the fact that Japanese refused to sign this contract. And when Americans asked, so why are you refusing? You said that, you said, okay, 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 yesterday. And they said, we said, okay, meaning that we understand you, we hear you, but our okay did not mean that we accept your offer. And this is also about context. Of course, this is also about designing the process of negotiation, depending on some cultural issues, depending on using negotiation techniques. In this sense, I would devote more time to asking questions than speaking. So it's just a small example. Here is a list of main characteristics of two contexts, but it's not exhaustive. Of course, there are some other characteristics. I hope this list will give you understanding what high context and low context mean and how they are different. So as for low context, visually it looks like direct line below. And in those who use low context, usually they are very direct in their communication. The largest part of the information is conveyed verbally. And usually what is said, that is meant. Quick decision is very important for the representatives of low context. Emotions usually are expressed out. These are the main characteristics of low context. And theoretically, the representatives of low context are the representatives from the countries listed on this slide: United Kingdom, USA, Switzerland, Germany, Canada, Australia. But again, I would like to remind you that within one country, one culture, different contexts can take place. So, but theoretically, here is the list. High context. As for high context, their communication visually looks like a wavy line. Sometimes it can be taken as a beating around the bushes, like hints, using hints. So the language is not direct. The communication is not direct. The largest part of information is conveyed non-verbally by gestures, facial expression. So it's very important to pay attention to non-verbal language. Not only with high context. Usually it's good to pay attention always when you're communicating, because non-verbal language usually comes first before even saying something. That's why it's very important, especially when dealing with high context representatives, to pay attention to non-verbal language. Decision-making requires more time. For example, in cultures and representatives of those cultures who use high context, they, for example, the tea ceremony, which usually preludes, if there are negotiations, it preludes to the negotiation talk. Or in some countries, it can be drinking some other beverages, maybe hot ones, but this is also about high context, not just simply to come and sign the agreement. It's also about small talk. Emotions remain inside. So the representatives of high context, usually they are not such expressive as the representatives of low context. In that sense, usually, not usually, but those who do not know that there are such contexts, and depending on the context, a person can express him or herself directly or indirectly. So when a person expresses himself or herself directly, it can sometimes even offend those who do not know that it is just about context. It's about direct line of communication without any wavy lines. And as for representatives of high context, theoretically, they came from the following countries: China, Japan, Kyrgyz Republic, Kazakhstan, Greece, Russia, and some other countries. So later we will have a small exercise on the context, different contexts, trying to shift different sentences of low context to the high context and high context to the low context. Now I would like to turn to the topic of nonverbal language in cross-cultural negotiation. And what is the main thing we start any negotiation with different cultures, just with people, not with different cultures? Greeting. Greetings is something that helps you build rapport from the very start of even before negotiations start, let's say, before mediation starts. So help me with this. The first picture on this slide, which country uses this nonverbal language when greeting each other?
Thailand.
Any other options?
Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm. Other views? This is Thailand, and the first one is about India, and it is called Namaste, when two palms are placed together and closer to the chest. And the difference with Thailand greetings that usually, this is also like Namaste, but palms, sorry, come closer to the chin. And there is a small, a light nod also. What about the picture at the center of the slide? It is a handshake. And what countries use handshaking?
We do it in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Canada, United States.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, United States, CIS countries, the countries of Commonwealth of Independent States. Okay, the next one, the first picture on the left side, this one.
Japanese.
Korea?
Sorry?
China and Japan.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And usually it's about bowing. So Japanese people, they greet each other by bowing, and it can range from a just nod of the head to the to the deepest one at the waist, depending on the level of respect. What about this picture?
We do this in Turkey.
Yes, it is very close to Arabic countries, to Turkey, to Muslim countries. When after handshaking, this is the second part of the greetings. When after the shaking hands, the right hand put on the heart area, which also shows respect. But as for Muslim countries and Arabic countries are also in this list, there is some peculiarities regarding gender. Greetings depending on gender. For example, it is not welcomed to contact, to physically contact people of different gender. So, but again, for example, in our country, most of the population are Muslims, but we're a secular country, and handshaking is quite normal for females also. But once I had a trip and we had a negotiation, and I was the only representative from Asian countries and the only female. So one of the participants handshaked with all the participants, other participants, but when it was my turn, he was a bit confused looking at me and not knowing what to do. And I just said to him, you can just shake my hand also, it's okay for me. He laughed and did it. So sometimes you need just to be low context and say it directly. And this is a new one. This is a third context that we all had now. It is a COVID context greeting, when people, and it replaces in some situations handshaking, when people touch each other by their elbows. Now I would like to talk to you with one more gesture, nonverbal gesture, which in many countries is taken as okay, but it can have radically different meanings in depending on the country. And we should be very careful when using this sign, because it is used in just common communication, everyday communication, but it is also used in negotiation and mediation. And the sign is that one. It is understood as okay, for example, in my country, in the US and some other countries, but it has, again, radically negative, it can have radically negative meaning in some other countries. For example, in Tunisia, it means I will kill you. In Japan, it is associated with money or asking for finances. In Brazil, sorry, it means buttocks. In Syria, the meaning is go to hell. In France, it means nothing or non-contributing zero. And the list is not exhaustive. There are some other meanings. I know that in German, if I'm not mistaken, it also has a negative meaning. Andrea or Alexandra, maybe you would comment on this somehow.
I'm not
Thank
like it's not something that is overall speaking. I think it depends a little bit. It can be also like that's good, but it can be also kind of like sexual implication. I think it changed to this or this, and this is very
but this one is the circle which is made by pointer and the thumb. So, and the different is meaning. The meaning is different in many other countries. So usually, for example, in my country, people use this sign of this gesture very often, meaning okay. And sometimes it comes even before a person starts speaking. So in some other countries, it depends, but people use it because there are some resources and you can read even more about the meaning of this gesture. In Kenya, it means fantastic, awesome, you see? So a positive meaning, but even better than just okay. I think the first thing that we need to do in every mediation involving different cultures is to show respect to culture, to the culture that is different from your own culture. How? By knowing the basics, just to show that you are familiar, at least with the basics. By greeting, if it does not contradict to the greeting that you use. If you cannot use these greetings, I mean, this, for example, this nonverbal greeting, you can use some common one that is acceptable to you and to the party or to the parties. Another one that I usually share with those who come to my trainings, do not try to be a German or English or Arab if you are not. Some people, when they communicating with the representatives of different culture, or when they go to a foreign country, they try to take this role of being a representative of this different culture, and it doesn't work because it feels artificial. It is not authentic. Be yourself, but get familiar with the basics of this culture, and that will help you to be accepted by the representatives of this culture different to your culture. Do not judge the context by the culture. Again, you can read a lot in different resources about high context and low context, but there are a lot of theories saying that usually context is about culture. It is not about culture. It's within one culture, you can meet different contexts. So do not judge the context by culture. Escape the right-wrong approach when dealing with different cultures. What do I mean? For example, something that can be taken as right in one culture is taken as a wrong thing in your culture. But when you're mediating, it is about your neutrality. It's about your being open. And even if you do not accept it as right thing, it's not about you, it's about them, it's about their situation. You just can work with the situation and deal with their culture, not taking it for yourself. It's not about you, and it's not about transforming to something that is wrong for your culture and for yourself. And what I found useful, and I can do it myself, and I think most of the mediators, they are able to use both contexts. It's very, very helpful when you have cross-cultural negotiations and mediations involving different cultures. Because when you use different contexts in the way you speak, in the way you communicate, you address all the parties, all the people involved in this particular negotiation or mediation. So try to use both contexts. That's all from my side. Thank you all for joining.